always looking for new ways to gauge and monitor global reaction to big events like these talks. And of course, social media is now a big part of that. Samantha Barry here, she's in charge of our social media at BBC World. And Sam, how's it looking on social media, particularly in Pakistan? What's been the reaction to the progress of these talks?
Well, there's been a bit of a mixed reaction. When we broke the story on our Facebook page this morning, we posted that to a global audience, and there was a lot of cynicism amongst the people that were commenting on it, asking why the Pakistan government were having talks with terrorists, saying that the Taliban needed to denounce all terrorism in order for these talks to be fruitful. So the big, hundreds of comments, and the vast majority of those pretty pessimistic. But we then decided we wanted to target our audience in Pakistan that log into our Facebook page. So we targeted a post that was just to that Pakistani audience, and that was more split, with actually the majority of people being more hopeful than cynical about the talks. They talked about that the peace talks were the only way forward, how Pakistan is tied in with the Taliban, and this was at least the first step forward in the long step of talks. This is a typical comment that we got from one of our Pakistani Facebook fans saying, "I want this discussion to end with fruitful result, because we're now fed up with everyday blasts, and negotiations are the better option." So more optimism out of our Pakistani audience.
That's interesting, isn't it? And talk me through, Sam, now, Pakistan and particularly the Taliban's use of things like Twitter, like Facebook. Are they big users of these kind of social network platforms?
On the surface, they're obviously not coming across as big advocates of this kind of social media. But there was a case in December 2012 where there was a Facebook page where the TTP, or the Pakistani Taliban, were using a Facebook page in order to try to hire people to write propaganda for their quarterly journal or their quarterly newsletter. That got maybe a couple of hundred likes before Facebook stepped in, and their investigators saw what was happening and took down the page. But if you see any of the Taliban videos that are released, they need to go somewhere, and they end up in the right online channels in order for them to get out to the mass audience and international. So they are using those kind of social media channels for a lot of different reasons.
Interesting. A part, of course, YouTube, which is banned inside Pakistan. You were telling me earlier that some of the bigger Twitterers, if you like, inside Pakistan have remained sort of auspiciously silent over the progress of these talks. What do you read into that?
Well, there's a couple of pretty influential people on Twitter, Imran Khan being one of them. He hasn't tweeted this morning about the Pakistan talks. The people that are tweeting in Pakistan, they're Pakistani journalists or international journalists in the country. But those top list of people that are really influential in this sphere haven't been tweeting so far this morning, or at least that I've come across.
Okay. Interesting. Sam, always good to talk to you. Thanks very much there. Samantha Barry there, talking us through some of the reaction that we've seen on social media to the progress of these talks in Pakistan. Yelda, back to you now.
Thanks very much, Alice. Alice Baxter there in the World's Newsroom. And of course, more than 100 people have been killed by insurgents in Pakistan. So I can understand there would be some skepticism about these talks.